That's great. Yeah.
So now I start to cough.
Alright, ready to get started?
Yes.
I'm actually ready.
Yeah, that's good.
No keys. So to start this biography on my grandma in review, first question I would like to ask you is, do you remember where you were, or what you were doing when you heard about the JFK assassination?
Absolutely. I was teaching third grade in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. And the announcement came to us as I was teaching a song. It was actually a patriotic song. And they said John Kennedy. And the whole thing unfolded. And that evening his body was flown into, I think, was it Andrews Air Force Base? We all went out there. It was freezing in the bitter November winter. And we stood and watched and could get a glimpse of the coffin coming off the airplane. And the coffin was a bronze color. And Jackie Kennedy still had her pink suit on, and it was splattered with blood. We didn't get to see too much because they didn't tell you where the plane was going to land, so people were going here, going there, and I just happened to be where I could get a glimpse. So yes, I was definitely there.
It's true, more than sad day. How do you feel about the whole, covering up that they did, the FBI did not release the information?
I think there is a conspiracy. I've read books, I've listened to different notable people give their theories, and of course they're not opening up the Warren Commission research. I think it's in, 20 more years? 10 or 20 more years, and they feel most people who would have had anything to do with it will be dead.
Yeah.
I think there was a cover-up. I don't know if it was mob retaliation because of the Kennedys' turncoating on the mob who helped get him into office, because his brother Bobby became Attorney General and then prosecuted the mob. Don't know. But I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone.
I concur. I don't necessarily think it is a sole act. There's a lot of controversy about it.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing.
I'm just,
What if Jackie O did it? Because she was mad about Maryland.
and all the other 9,000 women he had.
I don't get why they say he's a good looking guy. He was not good looking. He's a cool guy. I respect him,
Yeah.
like Kennedy just.
He was pretty handsome in those days compared to the presidents that we had before.
In
for
comparison to Dwight.
Yeah, Dwight Eisenhower wasn't known for his looks, but he was a wonderful man.
So we're going to go back into your childhood on this next question. And as a child, what was the universal perception of Joseph McCarthy and the House of Un-American Activities, the WHAC?
That was in the 1950s,
It was.
and I'm going to have to clear my throat again.
Specifically, the communist trials.
So my mother had the TV set on all the time, and what the heck is she watching? It was like the first time they were broadcasting news that today you see 24/7 on CNN. And I went in and I looked and I watched, and then as history progressed, there were communists in the government. And McCarthy was maybe too tough or aggressive, but there were communists covertly trying to undermine, and people didn't like the hysteria, and some of them believed very strongly that it was a big threat to the United States. So I thought what he did at the time, for the way the nation was, coming out of World War II and Russia becoming a tough communist power, and Red China being definitely an ugly communist power under Mao Zedong, I thought what he did was right at the time.
I got you. What about going into Hollywood, which didn't seem to have, any connection to the government? It's like random people and
yeah.
their careers.
A lot of the writers were blacklisted.
Yeah.
The trouble with the deep reaching of writers oftentimes is they put a lot of subliminal politics in their movie scripts or their plays. So I'm not sure enough about that. I know there are great writers, Arthur Miller, Horton Foote, great writers that were blacklisted.
I would hold it to this day that Steinbeck's a communist, but nonetheless, I think they have the right to preach their message to the American public, regardless of whether it's against the government.
Yeah.
That's my issue with it. I understand going into the government and keeping a mentality that's forthright, but when he went into Hollywood, or when he tried to attack the army, which was unsubstantiated,
I don't remember much about the army, so.
that's when he hit his demise, because he tried to go into the army. He tried to attack World War II generals who fought against this as communists, and it was totally unsubstantiated. He ended up actually dying a couple years later because he was a drunk.
Yeah, he was a heavy drinker, as many people in Congress are. Or as Lincoln said about Ulysses Grant, when they said he's a drunk, he said, I'd like to know what he's drinking. I'd like some of it.
Great general.
Yes.
Not necessarily agree with his tactics of just sending them to death, but he got it done.
U.S. Grant?
too. I
Yes.
love naming my kid Ulysses. So another thing from the 50s related to the Soviet Union. How did you feel when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1? Did it change your perspective on America in any ways?
I was in high school, I think I was a sophomore, if not a junior, in math class, and coming down, the head of the math department comes into our classroom, and he's talking to each class. His name was Joseph P. Orleans, could never forget him. And he came in and he said, we have to really learn our math, we have to get more students into college, we're threatened now by the Soviet Union. And as it came out afterwards, many grants were being given out.
They had
Kids
the
who-
National Loan,
Yes.
National Education and Safety Act, where they gave $887 million
Did
to
they?
education. There was grants, loans
To get
for
people to go-
to college. Yeah.
Math, science, technology.
Yeah.
And I do remember his coming into the room and I thought, not going to affect me. Math isn't my forte. It's my weak subject. Don't talk to me. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah. And there was a second part to that.
Oh yeah. Did it change your perspective on like American supremacy in any way?
Nope. I figured we were going to outdo and surpass the Soviet Union because the whole basis is a despotic state and people don't flourish as much there. I didn't have any worry then. But I was only 15.
Yeah.
What did I know?
Exactly. You weren't reaching the older ages when you really feel that the newer generation is screwing up, which seems to be a consistent trait throughout the seniors of the society. Would you concur with me?
What was that? What did the seniors?
Would you agree with me that the older you get, the more out of touch with the youth you seem to be? So therefore, the new news that really changes things appears to have more weight to it. So if I was 70 and I hear about the Sputnik 1 launching, I think, oh my God, you know, if I was a traditional 7-year-old, I would think, oh my God, they're really taking over. But then when you get it, you know, it just seems to look that way.
I try to look at the news from a lot of vantage points.
I got you.
So, and I stay in touch with the youth
Yes,
because
you
I
do.
have Jamie and Cece
Because
to
we're
tell me
bestest
all
friends.
about. Yes.
And you have her to tell you about One Direction, and you have me to tell you about, you know, the actual things of value within youth culture.
Yeah.
Well, partial value.
Yeah, like Jay-Z.
You like Jay-Z. You know he was an executive producer on a Great Gatsby movie though.
Oh,
interesting, yeah.
really?
All the Harlem Renaissance mentionings, which weren't in the novel, were, I would presume, from his doing. It was an interesting subplot meshed into it.
I watched an interview of him on the Oprah Channel the other night on
He's a
network.
punk.
What I read about him, though, in a book called Hollywood Hypocrites, is that he was a huge drug pusher before he went into his professional, cleaned-up field.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
I mean,
he grew up in the New
Grew up
York
in New York.
projects.
what are you going to do to make money?
Well, that's, I guess, how I got into it. I don't know too much of his background, but he was interesting to listen to. He was
Smart
pretty
guy.
intelligent. Yeah,
Very smart guy.
pretty intelligent.
Got respect when he signed my favorite artist in the world.
He is?
His label. He signed my favorite artist in the world.
Oh, who?
J. Cole.
Oh, okay, I haven't listened.
St. John's graduate, summa cum laude, and also a rapper. And
Interesting. No, I haven't heard his. Now I'll have to learn more from you
like
about
his
that.
music, but I'll play it for you nonetheless.
Uh-huh.
Trip to Corner Bakery. For your
Okay,
benefit.
wherever we go.
Okay. Max, is it able to hear?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a more personal one, but when and for who did you vote for in your first presidential election, and how come?
I think it was Jack Kennedy. As a matter of fact, it had to be Jack Kennedy because that was my